Have you heard of chop suey a la Coolidge? Apparently, one of President Calvin Coolidge's favorite dishes was the chop suey by one of his chefs, Ping Quan. Quan was a chef on the presidential yacht Mayflower. In today's episode, we will learn about the rise and fall of Coolidge's Chinese chef, and whether it's true that Coolidge loved chop suey. Hi, my name is Christy, and this is the American Chinese Food Show. Chop suey a la Coolidge is just a simple chicken chop suey. Chicken cut in thin strips, sauté in butter, add celery, onion, spinach, 1 can of fancy Chinese vegetables drained, and stir in soy sauce. In case you don't know, fancy Chinese vegetables include water chestnuts, bamboo shoots, mushrooms, red bell peppers, and bean sprouts packed in water in a can. This hardly feels like a presidential dish. Before we dive in more, let's learn a little bit about Chef Ping Quan. Quan was born in 1891 in Guangdong, China, on the Street of the Seven Lotus Flowers, and was taken to the Philippines by his parents when he was only 2 years old. His father ran a little grocery store there. He went to a cooking school in Manila for 5 years so he could help his uncle, who worked as the head of the pastry department in one of the Chinese hotels. He learned how to make stuff like almond candies, chocolate drops, and sponge cake. He joined the Navy at the Philippine Naval Base and was enlisted on board the torpedo boat Decatur when he was 14 by the then ensign in the United States Navy, Chester W. Nimitz. Quan worked his way up to become an officer's steward. After serving as a sea cook on Navy ships for 20 years, by 1922, Quan's culinary fame was widespread in the Navy. He attributed his rise to the practice he made of seeing the culinary world. It was his custom to go ashore at every port and visit the restaurants for new ideas. Just how good was his food? General John Pershing, commander of the American Expeditionary Force in World War I, who led the United States to victory in that war, once ate his food. He called for Quan and said, "If such delicious food was served to our doughboys, we would have won the war long ago." Ping Quan's big moment came. President Harding needed a new cook for the presidential galley, and Quan was appointed. He subsequently cooked for the presidents for 8 years, including years being the chef of the Mayflower. The Coolidges hosted dinner cruises for up to 30 people on the Mayflower. Quan had a staff of 4 cooks and 8 waiters. He made dinners of up to 20 courses that fused American and Cantonese standards, like fried soft shell crab on corn cakes, roasted capon with cranberry sauce, and chicken chop suey with rice, bamboo shoots, and tomato salad. When Hoover became president, he issued orders that the Mayflower be put out of commission in order to save about $300,000 yearly upkeep. Quan just reached the retirement period of 20 years of naval service when that happened. Even though he was just 37 years old, he refused to re-enlist because cooking for anybody else probably felt like a step down. So instead, he opened his own restaurant on West 51st Street in New York City in 1929. To remind people of his former glory, Quan tried to copy the Mayflower setting as much as possible. The dining room has green and red lights with brass-trimmed portholes, red leather upholstered wall seats, and bamboo chairs that resemble those on the yacht. Outside the sign reads, "Quan, formerly chef of U.S.S. Mayflower, luncheon, tea, and dinner." Quan said he had 4 Chinese cooks at work under him, but is an American restaurant, not Chinese, or American cooking. Some of the items on the menu were President's Dinner, Ambassador's Dinner, President Coolidge's Jelly Roll, Harding's Almond Cookies. He was assured of enough diplomatic and naval patronage to keep him from having to depend on tourists for his restaurant. He even got a letter from President Coolidge. "My dear Quan, Mrs. Coolidge and I wish you every success with your restaurant. We shall always remember how kind you were to us when you were on the U.S.S. Mayflower and how well you fed us. Yours, Calvin Coolidge." Unfortunately, the letter didn't help bring more customers in. The restaurant was opened in April. By December of the same year, Quan closed up his restaurant and announced he was bankrupt. gossip column in the next year said he was working as a chef at the Broadway nightclub. By 1938, he was living in a tenement cellar in New York that looked like a coal bin from the outside. You can see feet walking by through the window, but on his shelves he kept all the letters he received, including the one from Coolidge. He'd work at Midtown and Uptown New York, then Lincoln and Rockport, Maine, serving those presidential dishes, but restaurant after restaurant closed behind him. Turns out people just didn't seem to want to eat like presidents, especially during the lean years of the Great Depression. But Chuan was doing okay. He was getting about a pension of $75 a month in the 1930s from the Navy. Chuan ended up writing a cookbook in 1939 called To a President's Taste, being the reminiscences and recipes of Ping Quan, ex-president's steward on the presidential yacht U.S.S. Mayflower. It included recipes like shrimp a la king and puff pastry, Mrs. Harding's preferred style. The Library of Congress has in its collection 16 books by and about chefs and other personnel involved in the White House and presidential cuisine. Chuan was the first chef who published a presidential cookbook. When Chuan was 61, he wrote to Admiral Nimitz after 33 years since the two met, asking to be returned to active service, serving as a steward to the admiral, after learning that 2 houses he had invested his life savings in back in Guangdong, China, were destroyed by the Japanese. He was too old and the application was turned down. Some newspapers said he was heartbroken and became sick with disappointment. When he entered Bellevue Hospital 2 weeks before his death, he asked a friend to see if he would get a military funeral. He was given a military funeral in 1943 when he passed away. Did Coolidge really like chop suey? Probably not. Coolidge liked simple rustic dishes like pork apple pie and corn muffins. The dish that he really liked from Chuan was actually the veal curry. It was Mrs. Coolidge that was fond of chop suey. Chuan had a letter from her that reads, "Many thanks for the delicious chop suey. My friends and I have eaten chop suey in many places, but never found any as good as yours. Sometime I hope you will teach me to make it." The story later somehow became that she wanted to learn the recipe because it was so loved by President Coolidge. That's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed this new Forgotten Chef series. If you like the content, subscribe to our channel. See you soon.